When you look online for budget-friendly 35mm film cameras, the same names tend to come up. The Canon AE-1 and the Pentax K1000 are loved by many, but in my opinion they are not that budget-friendly. If you're in the US and you're lucky, you can maybe find a Canon AE-1 body under $100, but those Pentax K1000s usually cost upwards of $200. For that price, you can start looking into a cool medium format camera instead, like a Yashica Mat or a Mamiya C220. So let me introduce you to a 35mm film camera that is a lot more budget friendly and that I think deserves a lot more recognition. The Praktica MTL5B. It's a single lens reflex that was made between 1985 and 1989 in East Germany by Pentax. It has shutter speeds going from 1/1000th of a second to 1 second and bulb, ISO speeds from 12 to 1600, an internal light meter, a self-timer, and an M42 lens mount. That means that there are a lot of amazing lenses out there for this camera, like for example the famous Helios 44-2. But I found that this basic lens also provides that wonderful swirly bokeh. It is completely mechanical and has a metal body, so it's very sturdy and reliable. It is also cheap. You can easily find a body with a lens for under $100 on eBay, or sometimes even under $50. This is the MTL5B, but I can also recommend the MTL3 and the MTL5, since these are basically the same cameras with some minor differences. I actually used to own an MTL3 and I shot with it for over 10 years, until it tragically died in an accident involving assault, which I am not ready to talk about. Since then, I have shot with both the MTL5 and the MTL5B, and I can confirm that these three cameras are basically the same. So this camera is completely mechanical. You do not need a battery to make it work. However, if you want to use the internal light meter, you do need a battery for that. The newer models use an easily found LR44 battery, but you can use the same battery in the older models by using one of these 3D printed adapters. So how does it work? Well, you start by loading the camera, which I find to be a lot easier in the Prakticas than in some other 35mm film cameras. Now, just don't forget to indicate what ISO film you're using by pulling up this dial. When you look into the viewfinder, you will see 3 circles as focusing aids. The middle is a split image aid, which I personally really like, as I find it a lot easier to see when you're in focus or not. On the right, you will see a needle, which indicates your exposure. And if you see this little triangle on the left, that just means you haven't advanced your film yet. To measure the light, you push this little button on the front of the camera, and the needle will then indicate if your exposure is over or under. You can adjust the aperture and shutter speeds from there, and when your shot is properly exposed, the needle will be in the middle. When you're done shooting, you push this button on the bottom and use this lever to wind back the film. For me, this is a great camera, but it might not be for everyone. So here are a few of the pros and cons of the Praktica MTL5B. The first pro of this camera is that it's completely mechanical, so you do not need a battery, and there are also no electronic parts that can break. With its metal body, it is robust and reliable. It has an M42 lens mount, and there are a lot of lenses out there that you can use with this camera. It also looks really nice, and let's not forget that it is very affordable. Some of these pros are also a con at the same time, because it is completely mechanical, but that also means that it's quite slow to work with, and you do have to be comfortable using the exposure triangle. The metal body that makes it very robust and reliable also makes it quite heavy, and then there's the fact that it's quite loud, so you cannot really be subtle when you're taking photos with this camera. Now, I have never shot with the Canon AE-1 or the Pentax K1000, but I was curious to see how the specs of these two famous film cameras compared to the Prakticas. So I did a little bit of research, and the results were actually quite surprising. So all three cameras are quite similar. First of all, in weight, with the Praktica actually being the lightest of the three. Canon and Pentax both have their own lens mount, whereas the Praktica has a more universal one. Shutter speeds are very similar, but the Praktica only goes up to ISO 1600 instead of 3200 for the Canon and the Pentax. There is no self-timer on the Pentax, and for the Canon you do need batteries to make it work, whereas the Pentax and Praktica will work without any. Overall, the technical differences between these cameras are really quite small, confirming that the Praktica is actually amazing value for money. So who is this camera for? If you're a beginner, I would recommend this camera to you, if at least you are a little bit interested in the technical side of photography. If you're looking for a camera that does all the work for you, this is definitely not the camera for you, as it does require you to do a lot of the thinking and dialing in. But if you don't mind this and you love a very tactile and hands-on feel, then this camera is perfect for you. For beginners, the other nice thing about this camera is the easy loading of the film, and also the fact that it is super affordable. So if you are looking for a great 35mm film camera for a budget-friendly price, then I think the Praktica MTL5B or the MTL3 or the MTL5 is a great option. If you're interested in seeing this camera in action in a French medieval village, then I recommend this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!